Yes, that is right. Mutagon and Metronette are getting a nerf, whereas Ikazune is getting a nice big buff. With that being said, let's talk about it. Okay then, let's talk about the nerfs first. Obviously, Mutagon and Metronette are some of the strongest Loomians in the game, being banned from every competitive tournament, and it isn't just that they're a little too strong, the power difference is pretty overwhelming. Let's start with Mutagon first then. So it's actually going to have its base stats change, so it'll lose 10 health points, going from 107 to 97, and it'll also lose 20 melee defense points, going from 134 to 114, which these 30 stat points will be placed into its range attack stat that it doesn't use, going from 48 to 78. It still won't really use its range attack stat, but I guess it's more viable than it was before, so if you want to run like more Mimi sets, I mean, I guess eventually it'll get like Boom Bash and Psycho Blasts. I'm not going to just stop there though, I could just tell you the stats and say, hey, this one is getting a nerf or a buff, and just call it there, but that's kind of lazy, so instead I actually want to go a little bit more in depth and tell you guys my thoughts and why these changes are happening specifically, so your guys' feedback is actually really appreciated. The basic issue with Mutagon is that there are very few Loomians in the game that can freely switch into Mutagon's attacks and threaten it back, with like the most common answer being Vesperatu, which has its own issues of just tick clips existing. It seems that a lot of competitive players have come to find out that Mutagon's overall level of bulk allows it to set up a Brawn boost with almost practically no risk involved in doing so whatsoever, and then proceeding to deal huge amounts of damage, which, like I mentioned before, a lot of Loomian in the game currently just can't switch into. And then on top of that, there's another issue that when Mutagon goes on to secure a KO, the Loomian that then switches in to revenge kill Mutagon, such as a faster Loomian like Zulong or Protagon, as an example, then get hit by a super strong quick punch and take a massive amount of damage because these Loomians are meant to be fast, they're not really meant to be investing a lot into their defenses, and this just leaves like really no counterplay, other than to use a spirit type Loomian to revenge kill Mutagon, which just in itself is very limiting and just isn't very competitive. So the idea behind this nerf is to target Mutagon's defensive stats to make it a little bit more risky when clicking Brawn boost, as it'll take more damage in return. I should mention though, I'm not going to remove quick punch from Mutagon with this specific set of changes. I would rather do small changes over a period of time and see how those changes affect it, rather than doing big drastic changes all at once, and the effect that I might overtune something, and then it's like basically flip-flopping, okay, I nerfed it too much, buff it again, oh, I buffed it too much, gotta nerf it again. Just being completely flip-flop. Although in the future, it is most likely going to have Quick Punch removed from its launch set, and then after that, if its bulk is still too good, it may have them lowered again. Okay then, moving on to Metronette now. Metronette is also going to be receiving a nerf, so its base stats will be changed, so it'll lose 60 melee defense points, going from 95 to 79, and it'll lose 10 range defense points, going from 99 to 89. And then these stats will be redistributed to 20 melee attack, going from 49 to 69, free health going from 80 to 83, and finally free energy going from 95 to 98. So from my understanding, the issue with Metronette isn't just one thing alone, it's basically a combination of everything that Metronette can do because it has a lot of things going for it. Its typing's very strong, Mind and Dark is a very good type combo, it's really fast, it hits hard, it has really good utilities such as being a really fast Hypnotize user that only Mind types are immune to, but oh wait, we're a Dark type, so they don't want to switch into us, which alone is pretty darn strong. But what puts it over the edge is all of that in combination with it's really tanky with its defenses, being able to take quite a few hits unless they're super effective. I still want Metronette to keep its role as a fast, hard-hitting Loomian with a lot of utility options, although I would like to remove some of its bulk so it isn't able to shrug off basically any damage thrown its way, unless it's a quad super effective bug type move. In the future, however though, if Metronette's bulk is still too good, I will be willing to remove some more of its defensive stats from it, which I think will end up being the case in my opinion. I think with these specific defense changes, I think they could be reduced even more so, but we'll see how this plays out, and then if it is still too strong, I'll get another hit. And finally, onto Ikazune. Yes, you guys have been waiting for it, okay? Ikazune is getting a huge buff, which is actually just reverting its stats back to its original beta stats before it was officially released into the game. So it'll have its base stats changed, so it will lose 15 energy points, going from 125 to 110, and losing 5 range defense points, going from 78 to 73, and these 20 stat points will be going straight into Ikazune's speed, raising it from 74 to 94. So the reason why Ikazune's stats were changed to be a lot slower was due to how early in the story you could potentially get it. In my mind at the time, I thought it would be a little dumb if you could just randomly get this Loomian before even fighting the second battle phase, by the way, and then proceeding to sweep the rest of the adventure mode of Ikazune with, at the time, the highest range attack stats in the game, and on top of that, almost being at 100 base speed and allowing you to basically outspeed a majority of NPC battles that aren't TP trained. Although I didn't take into consideration how unlikely it is for a player just to stumble randomly across an Ikazune in the wild at full odds if they aren't going out of the way to purposely find one, which instead I just ended up hurting it in the PvP scene where Ikazune is just overshadowed by a lot of other fire and electric type Loomians. So with these stat changes, Ikazune is now going to be outspeed a good chunk of Loomians, with the downside being, of course, it is super frail and it will be easily punished if you are using it incorrectly. Although now there is another issue, is that it just completely competes with Phage Knot, as they both have very similar range attack stats and speed stats now. But Phage Knot is also tanky, whereas Ikazune isn't. So to solve this, Phage Knot isn't going to be getting a lot of coverage moves, as to be honest, it just doesn't need them. Whereas Ikazune will be receiving some coverage moves, and for example, in the future, it is going to be getting Nature's Force as its next level up move. And there we are. Like I said early in the video, make sure to let me know your thoughts and feedback in the comments, or just in general as a whole, as it just gives me some really good insight on how to go about these changes more so in the future.